Do you believe that with all our modern technology, we could replicate the Egyptian pyramids with the same level of perfection? What if I told you that not even our largest cranes could lift some of the blocks used by ancient civilizations? Get ready to have everything you believe about human history challenged. Imagine blocks weighing over 1,000 tons being quarried, transported and stacked with a precision that rivals laser cutting. No cranes, no concrete, no computers. These constructions don't just defy logic. They humble our supposed technological superiority. Some experts insist it was all done with ropes and human strength. Others propose bolder hypotheses, lost technologies, forgotten knowledge, perhaps even something we don't dare to consider. In this video, you'll discover 25 structures that continue to baffle engineers, archaeologists, and skeptics around the world. We'll journey across continents, from the temples of Egypt to the platforms of Polynesia, from Andean walls to the buried mysteries of Asia, to explore works that even today would be a logistical nightmare for any construction crew. Imagine trying to build something like this today. You'd need a crane capable of lifting hundreds of tons, a perfectly leveled terrain, computational planning, months of testing, and even then, it would likely cost millions of dollars. And yet they did it thousands of years ago, with none of that. And we're not talking about myths. These stones exist. They've been measured, photographed, studied. But no one can clearly explain how they were manipulated with such precision in such inaccessible locations. 1. Wall of the Six Monoliths, Ollantaytambo, Peru. Did you know there's a wall with blocks so perfectly fitted that not even a blade can slip between them? To start our list, how about a visit to the majestic Inca complex of Ollantaytambo? Located approximately 72 kilometers from Cusco, this archaeological site is famous for having been built during the height of the Inca Empire, possibly under the orders of the great emperor Pachacutec. Ollantaytambo served as a defensive fortress, ceremonial center, and urban hub. But the most striking feature for travelers and researchers alike is the Temple of the Sun, where the enigmatic wall of the six monoliths stands. Each of the blocks forming this wall is about 3.5 meters tall and may weigh around 50 tons. It's an impressive mass of stone, especially considering the flawless fitting of the blocks. The Incas became renowned for their technique of polygonal masonry, enormous stones worked with such precision that no mortar was needed. And still, it is impossible to insert a sheet of paper or the blade of a knife between them. Location adds another layer to the mystery. The monoliths were quarried several kilometers from the site, often requiring a crossing of the Urubamba River. It's believed that a long earthen ramp or specially prepared paths were used for transport, relying on a large workforce dragging the blocks with ropes and logs. But the fact remains, to this day, there is no clear documentation or archaeological evidence detailing exactly how these 50-ton blocks were hoisted to such a high altitude and fitted so precisely against each other. Beyond the purely technical explanations, we must consider the religious and spiritual aspects. The Temple of the Sun was a center of devotion to Inti, the sun deity. It would not be surprising if the Incas selected the largest and most impressive stones to honor their supreme god, demonstrating power, devotion, and craftsmanship. Whatever the case, the Wall of the Six Monoliths remains one of the great jewels of Inca engineering, intriguing visitors, engineers, and modern archaeologists. Some even claim the Incas did not create this base on their own, but rather built upon earlier structures left behind by an even older, vanished civilization. The extremely polished cuts and the symmetry of the stones challenge even the notion that bronze tools would be sufficient for such precision. 2. The King's Chamber, Great Pyramid of Giza, Egypt. Few ancient constructions inspire as much awe as the pyramids of the Giza Plateau in Egypt. Built over 4,500 years ago, The three Great Pyramids, attributed to Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure, form one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, and the only one still standing. The largest of them all, the Great Pyramid, or Pyramid of Khufu, houses the famous King's Chamber deep inside. The King's Chamber, located roughly at the center of the pyramid, is completely lined with pink granite from Aswan, located about 900 kilometers to the south. Each granite block used here can weigh between 25 and 80 tons, and calculations suggest that the ceiling of the chamber, composed of several slabs, supports around 400 tons of masonry above it. This is extraordinary even by modern standards, requiring advanced knowledge of load-bearing structures, weight distribution, and logistical planning to move such stones. Although traditional theories point to the use of wooden sleds and the construction of external or internal ramps to raise the blocks to the desired level, the debate continues. Some envision spiral ramps around the pyramid, others believe in straight ramps and extensive land leveling, and there are even those who advocate for the possibility of internal ramps. In any case, the undeniable fact is that the ancient Egyptians accomplished the feat. The motivation? To ensure the pharaoh's eternity, considered a demigod in life and deified after death, as well as to maintain cosmic harmony, Ma'at. The gigantic granite blocks, carefully polished and set with exceptional precision, are among the many arguments that the Egyptian civilization mastered highly sophisticated engineering techniques for its time. One need only step into the King's Chamber to feel an almost mystical atmosphere, silence, shadows, and a dense air that transports you to a glorious and mysterious past. 3. Göbekli Tepe, Turkey. Moving further along the timeline, we arrive at Göbekli Tepe, located in southeastern Turkey near Şanlıurfa. This archaeological site, dated between 10 and 12,000 years ago, has revolutionized archaeologists' understanding of the Neolithic era, as it revealed an architectural complex that predates, by several centuries, the domestication of plants and animals. In other words, all evidence suggests it is the oldest temple ever discovered. Göbekli Tepe's T-shaped pillars range between 3 and 6 meters in height and can weigh between 10 and 20 tons. All of them were quarried and carved with animal reliefs, lions, boars, foxes, snakes, vultures, in nearby stone quarries, then transported to the top of a hill where they were arranged in circles. One of these pillars, known as Pillar 43, features symbols that some researchers consider possible astronomical records, reinforcing the theory that Göbekli Tepe served spiritual or ritual purposes. The great enigma is, how did a group of hunter-gatherers, without a structured urban or agricultural base, manage to organize themselves to erect these megaliths? The most widely accepted theory suggests the site was a pilgrimage center where large groups gathered seasonally for rituals and feasts, engaging in collective efforts to extract and transport the stones. Some believe that the construction of such monumental temples may have been the catalyst for the rise of agriculture, as feeding so many people would require large quantities of grain and storage, encouraging sedentarization. In any case, Göbekli Tepe remains shrouded in mystery, also because it was intentionally buried thousands of years ago. The site, therefore, did not fall into ruin. It was purposefully covered. Why did its builders do that? Perhaps to mark the end of its sacred function or to protect it from threats. Those who set foot there for the first time feel the energy of a distant and little understood past, in which massive stone blocks already expressed human creativity and devotion. 4. Pumapunku, Bolivia. On the Bolivian Altiplano, near the famous archaeological site of Tiwanaku, lies an even more intriguing set of ruins, Pumapunku, Gate of the Puma. This complex dates to approximately the 6th century AD, and the stones found there are impressive not only for their size, but for the geometric precision of their joints and carvings. The sandstone blocks at Pumapunku can weigh dozens of tons, with the largest reaching about 130 tons. Some are carved into complex shapes, featuring straight grooves, nearly perfect right angles, standardized circular holes, and contours that fit together without mortar. To complicate matters further, the quarry from which these stones were supposedly extracted lies several kilometers away. The Tiwanaku civilization, responsible for Pumapunku, was one of the most influential in the pre-Columbian Andes, flourishing long before the rise of the Inca Empire. Yet the mystery of Pumapunku remains. Although there are hypotheses involving stone and bronze tools, as well as rudimentary pulley systems, no one knows for sure how they achieved such precision in their cuts and perforations. Experimental models suggest that ropes and weights could have been used to drill the stone with extreme patience, but the scale and perfection of the blocks continue to astonish. Some more alternative theories question whether Tiwanaku may have received knowledge from foreign cultures. Some even suggest trans-Pacific contact, or from now-lost civilizations. However, the current explanation remains within the realm of traditional hypotheses involving massive manual labor and advanced handcraft techniques. In any case, Pumapunku seems to anticipate technologies we would associate with much later eras and continues to inspire stories about a possible forgotten past of Andean engineering. One of the most provocative theories claims that Pumapunku holds traces of acoustic or vibrational technologies that allowed stones to be cut and transported using sound frequencies. While that idea may seem far-fetched at first glance, modern experiments have shown that certain sounds can indeed affect solid materials at the microscopic level. Could this be a clue to a lost form of knowledge? 5. The Stone of the Pregnant Woman, Baalbek, Lebanon. On the outskirts of ancient Roman Heliopolis, now Baalbek in Lebanon, lies a monolith popularly known as the Stone of the Pregnant Woman, Hajar el-Hibla. The nickname stems from local legends claiming that women would touch the rock to increase their fertility, as its shape resembles a pregnant belly. However, what truly stands out is its size. It measures approximately 20 meters in length and 4 meters in width, and its weight may exceed 1,000 metric tons. Some estimates go up to 1,200 tons. This stone is not alone. Nearby, there are other massive blocks that were never fully transported to the temple. One explanation is that the Romans, famed for their engineering prowess, intended to use these blocks for the temple of Jupiter Baal, but encountered technical difficulties, or realized that dealing with such heavy stones would be counterproductive. In any case, the platform on which the temple stands includes blocks weighing between 300 and 400 tons, which is remarkable in its own right. Many alternative theorists suggest that Baalbek's colossal base predates the Roman period and was in fact built by an unknown civilization. Indeed, the precision of the stone fittings and the sheer scale of the blocks have fueled much speculation. Could it have been constructed by a local culture predating the Phoenicians, a people from whom no records survive? Or was it simply the pinnacle of Roman engineering? Regardless of the answer, the Stone of the Pregnant Woman serves as a reminder that our certainties about history can stumble upon enigmas still not fully unraveled. 6. The Octopus Stone, Osaka Castle, Japan. Traveling to the Far East, we find the majestic Osaka Castle, originally built in the 16th century by order of daimyo Toyotomi Hideyoshi during the turbulent Sengoku period. This fortress symbolized the power of the Toyotomi clan and was later taken over by the Tokugawa clan, undergoing numerous reconstructions and destructions over the centuries. In the stone walls surrounding the castle, several megaliths continue to intrigue visitors. Among them stands the famous Octopus Stone, also known as takoishi, which measures approximately 5.5 by 11.7 meters, with considerable thickness and a weight of around 130 tons. It earned its nickname due to its curving shape, which resembles an octopus in the lower left corner. How were such stones transported? It is known that many of the fortress's blocks came from distant quarries and were likely transported by boat to Osaka's port, then hauled over wooden logs and rollers. The process would have required hundreds of workers and complex logistics to prevent the stones from becoming stuck in marshy ground or on steep slopes. Although Japan already possessed advanced woodworking and naval construction techniques at the time, the engineering required to move stones of this magnitude remains fascinating. Beyond its role as a fortress, Osaka Castle symbolized the centralization of power and the large-scale mobilization of human and material resources, key elements in the formation of the modern Japanese state. 7. Sacsayhuaman, Peru. Back in the Peruvian Andes, we arrive at another Incan monument that continues to impress both tourists and scholars. Sacsayhuaman, also spelled Sacsayhuaman. Located just outside Cusco, this massive fortress, or ceremonial complex according to some interpretations, was built in the 15th century during the height of the Inca Empire. What stands out most are the enormous stone blocks that form its zigzagging walls. Some are estimated to weigh over 100 tons, with blocks reaching between 3 and 5 meters in height. Once again, the precision of the joints is so remarkable that even today, one cannot fit a razor blade between the seams. Adding to the mystery, the quarry from which the Incas sourced these blocks lies several kilometers away. Transporting them across valleys and elevations would have required meticulous planning and a vast workforce. Historical records, especially those written after the Spanish conquest, suggest that thousands of people took part in the construction, but the exact methods, wooden rollers, ramps, etc., have yet to be definitively confirmed by archaeology. Beyond its defensive purpose, Sacsayhuaman likely held important ceremonial and astronomical functions. During the Inti Raymi festival, which celebrates the winter solstice in the Andes, the site becomes a stage for dances and rituals that invoke the ancestral power of the Incas. With its cyclopean walls, this site remains one of the most visible testaments to the sophistication and mystery of pre-Columbian Incan engineering. 8. Gornaya Shoria, Siberia, Russia. Leaving South America behind, we now travel to one of the most remote locations on our list, the Gornaya Shoria region in southern Siberia, Russia. This area is surrounded by mountain ranges and dense forests near the Altai Mountains. There, independent explorers and researchers have reported the discovery of what they refer to as the megaliths of Gornaya Shoria, located atop certain rocky outcrops. There are photographs showing enormous rectangular stone blocks stacked in a way that suggests a collapsed structure. Some estimates suggest the blocks weigh between 3,000 and 4,000 tons, far more than any stones used in constructions like Baalbek or Sacsayhuaman. The issue is that there is no consensus on whether these blocks were actually artificially carved or are natural formations, fractures and columns shaped by the local geology, which can deceive the untrained eye. More in-depth research is difficult due to the region's extreme weather conditions and the lack of infrastructure for long-term studies at the mountain peaks. Even so, enthusiasts propose theories about lost civilizations that may have inhabited Siberia in ancient times, building megalithic fortresses before disappearing without leaving written records. So far, mainstream science tends to regard Gornaya Shoria as merely an impressive natural phenomenon, with no clear evidence of human intervention. 9. The unfinished obelisk of Aswan, Egypt. Egypt returns to our list with another breathtaking example, the unfinished obelisk in Aswan. Had it been completed, it would have been the largest known obelisk in Egypt, reaching approximately 42 meters in height and weighing over 1,000 tons. Some estimates mention up to 1,200. Work was abandoned when a major crack appeared in the rock, making extraction unfeasible. Today, visitors to the ancient quarry can still see the massive block attached to the bedrock, along with the marks and cavities left by stonemasons. These traces offer a rare glimpse into the techniques used. Wooden wedges were inserted into the cracks, then soaked with water so they would expand and split the granite, while dolerite hammers, a harder rock, were used to shape the stone. This method required patience and a significant labor force. Aswan was famous for its high-quality pink granite used for obelisks, columns, sarcophagi, and monumental statues. 10. The Western Stone. In the Western Wall, Israel. In Jerusalem, specifically at the Western Wall, also known as the Wailing Wall, there is a stone block notably larger than the others, measuring about 13.6 meters in length and estimated to weigh 570 tons. Nicknamed the Western Stone, it sits several meters above the base of the wall, meaning the builders had to lift it into place without modern cranes. This block is part of the extensive expansion works of the Second Temple carried out by King Herod the Great, 1st century BCE. Herod was known for his grandiose building projects, including the temple in Jerusalem, the fortress at Masada, the port of Caesarea, and Herodium. In all these places, one can observe the use of massive stone blocks and advanced engineering solutions, such as water collection systems and thick defensive walls. The Western Wall remains a sacred pilgrimage site for Jews around the world, who leave their written prayers in the crevices of the stones. The Western Stone illustrates how this devotion has long been tied to monumental construction efforts. The practical question of how it was placed where it is continues to inspire theories involving earthen ramps, rollers, and simple traction machines. However, little detailed documentation remains, making the process a technical mystery still under debate. 11. The Carnac Stones, France. In Brittany, northwestern France, lies one of the largest megalithic sites in the world, the Carnac Stones, which include menhirs, dolmens, and alignments. Dated between 5,000 and 7,000 years ago, these Neolithic structures intrigue researchers both for their sheer number and their orderly arrangement. There are more than 3,000 granite stones, some weighing dozens of tons, laid out in rows, stretching for kilometers. A typical dolmen in Karnak may have a capstone weighing up to 40 tons, supported by upright stones about 1.5 to 2 meters high. The regularity of the menhir alignments, such as those at Menek, Camario, and Kerleskan, suggests ritual or astronomical functions, possibly primitive observatories used to track the movements of the sun, moon, or stars. Older theories propose that these alignments represented armies turned to stone by some supernatural power, reflecting the lasting popular fascination with Karnak. More recent research points to the possibility of religious rituals related to burials, seasonal calendars, or tribal demarcations. Still, none of these explanations diminish the mystery or answer the recurring question: how did they manage to organize and erect so many heavy stones at a time when human societies had yet to develop advanced metal tools? 12. Monument Valley, United States. The iconic landscape of Monument Valley, on the border between Arizona and Utah, is one of the most representative postcards of the American West. Located within the Navajo Nation Reservation, this valley features towering geological formations known as mesas and buttes, flat-topped rock elevations that can reach hundreds of meters in height. In addition to its natural towers and monoliths, some observers point to nearly rectangular blocks that appear, in places, to have been carved or laser cut. Of course, most of these contours are the result of differential erosion in layers of sandstone, shale, and conglomerate. Yet the geometric shapes continue to inspire certain legends and theories of possible intelligent intervention. The Navajo people have myths that speak of spirits and ancient beings who shaped the land, giving it a sacred character. The sight of megalithic blocks weighing 600, 700, or even 900 tons may simply be interpretations of massive rock slabs that have broken off from larger formations. Still, for the more imaginative, the regularity of some blocks in Monument Valley might suggest prehistoric human activity or even the work of vanished cultures. However, geological explanations appear sufficient to account for most of these formations. Regardless, Monument Valley remains a place rich in symbolism and natural beauty, evoking both the grandeur of the earth and the spirituality of its native peoples. 13. Dolmens of Gochang, Hwasun, and Gangwon, South Korea. The Korean peninsula, especially its southern half, is filled with dolmens, megalithic structures that served as tombs or funerary monuments during the Bronze Age. 3 sites stand out: Gochang, Hwasun, and the island of Gangwon, all of which are recognized as UNESCO World Heritage Sites. It is estimated that South Korea is home to over 35,000 dolmens, the highest concentration in the world. In Gochang, there are approximately 447 dolmens, while Hwasun hosts 596. The most impressive are the so-called table dolmens, made up of 2 or more vertical supports topped by a horizontal stone slab that can weigh 70, 80, or even 100 tons. Some records mention extraordinary examples, with caps weighing up to 280 tons. The logistics required to extract and transport these stones to elevated sites, sometimes 200 or 300 meters above sea level, remain a subject of speculation. Some researchers believe these communities developed techniques using levers, earthen ramps, and dragging stones over logs, similar to those employed in European megalithic constructions. Culturally, dolmens symbolize the importance of honoring ancestors and tribal leaders. They were elite tombs, political monuments, and religious structures that reinforce social cohesion and status among Korea's proto-historic communities. 14. Maya Stelae of Quirigua, Guatemala. The Maya civilization left us countless archaeological sites, and one of them is Quirigua, located in the department of Izabal, Guatemala. Dating from around 200 BCE to 850 CE, Quirigua is renowned for its monumental stelae, huge vertical sandstone blocks carved with hieroglyphic inscriptions and depictions of rulers, often in high relief. Some of these stelae weigh between 50 and 75 tons, with Stela E standing out at nearly 12 meters tall, considered the tallest monolithic monument erected in the New World. The precision of the Maya hieroglyphs carved into the hard sandstone is astonishing, and each stela tells a story. Fragments of Maya history or mythology that recount military victories, religious rituals, and royal lineages. Quirigua's sandstone is very dense, requiring durable tools for carving. Nevertheless, evidence suggests that the Maya used stone, obsidian, and wooden tools to sculpt and refine the blocks. They also transported the stones from quarries near the Motagua River, making use of the water's current to move the rocks on rafts or rudimentary boats. What's even more impressive is that Quirigua was not a major metropolis like Tikal or Copan, yet it still displayed great power and refined artistry. This reflects how rivalry and alliances between Maya city-states fueled a kind of constructive competition, resulting in monuments of epic proportions. 15. Lateran Obelisk, Italy. We now travel to ancient Rome, where several Egyptian obelisks were brought from the Nile regions. Among them, the Lateran Obelisk stands out as the tallest ancient Egyptian obelisk in Italy, and possibly the tallest granite obelisk in the world. Originally erected during the reign of Thutmose III, around 1470 BCE, and completed by Thutmose IV, this red granite monolith, inscribed with hieroglyphs dedicated to the sun god Amun-Ra, weighs over 400 tons and stands approximately 32 meters tall. It was transported from Karnak to Alexandria during the Hellenistic period, and later to Rome in 357 CE, when Emperor Constantius II sought to embellish the Circus Maximus with a monument worthy of imperial grandeur. After the fall of Rome, the obelisk collapsed in the circus and remained buried. It was not until the 16th century that it was excavated, restored, shortened by a few meters, and re-erected, this time in front of the Basilica of St. John Lateran. Just imagine transporting an obelisk weighing hundreds of tons from Egypt to ancient Italy, crossing the Mediterranean Sea, a feat that would leave any modern maritime engineer breathless. The operation required special ships, primitive hoists, rollers, and a massive workforce. Even so, the Romans proved themselves capable of such undertakings, reinforcing the idea that ancient engineering was far more advanced than we usually assume. 16. The Osirion in Abydos, Egypt. Abydos is one of the oldest and most sacred sites in Egypt, known as a center of worship for the god Osiris and for housing pre-dynastic tombs. However, there is an underground structure called the Osirion located behind the Temple of Seti IV. Likely built during the reign of this pharaoh, 19th dynasty, the Osirion is impressive for its use of extremely large granite blocks, some of which weigh between 60 and 100 tons. The interior features colossal pink granite columns and ceiling slabs so thick that it's difficult to conceive how they were lifted using traditional technologies. Many believe the Osirion may have originally been flooded to symbolically recreate the primordial ocean associated with the Osiris myth, linking it to fertility and cyclical renewal. An additional mystery is that architecturally, the Osirion differs slightly from other temples of the time. It appears older, more megalithic, and less decorated than other works from the New Kingdom, sparking theories that attribute it to a much earlier, pre-dynastic era. However, the prevailing view is that Seti I commissioned this construction as an attempt to revive archaic styles, reinforcing his connection to the Osiris cult. Regardless of its exact dating, the grandeur of the stones and the site's mystical atmosphere make a strong impression. 17. Sage Wall in Montana, United States. Known among some independent researchers and enthusiasts as the Montana megaliths, the so-called Sage Wall is a rock formation in southwestern Montana. It is an outcrop of granite or sandstone, sources vary, with seemingly polygonal blocks that give the appearance of megalithic masonry. The wall is estimated to be about 84 meters long and 7 meters high, with some blocks weighing up to 90 tons or more. However, many geologists argue that it is a natural phenomenon of fracturing and erosion, producing regular or straight patterns in the rock. Supporters of the artificial construction hypothesis, on the other hand, point to possible joint lines, similarities to Incan or polygonal walls, and even alleged tool marks. The debate has received little attention in mainstream academic circles, possibly because most consider the Sage Wall to be just a curious geological feature. Still, this kind of formation often fuels theories about very ancient prehistoric civilizations in North America, inspiring the search for evidence of advanced cultures that may have existed long before what official archaeology acknowledges. 18. Nan Madol, Micronesia. In the middle of the Pacific Ocean, on the island of Pohnpei, Federated States of Micronesia, lies the mysterious city of Nan Madol. Built atop approximately 92 artificial islets connected by canals, Nan Madol is often referred to as the Venice of the Pacific. Its construction is believed to date from the 8th to the 13th century AD, and to have served as a ceremonial and residential center for the Sodalur dynasty. The structures of Nan Madol were built using prismatic basalt blocks, some weighing up to 50 tons. The total amount of basalt used may reach an astounding 750,000 tons, a monumental effort for island populations without any motorized vehicles or iron tools. Local legends claim that the blocks were levitated by magic or transported by giants. The more plausible explanation involves rafts, ropes, and an organized labor force. But even then, the question of why remains. Nan Madol served both political and religious functions. Some buildings appear to have been temples, while others housed the nobility. After the fall of the Sodalur dynasty, the site was abandoned and became surrounded by myths of a curse. Archaeological explorations have revealed a remarkable history of small-scale engineering that transformed coral reefs and slabs into islets and navigable canals. The grandeur of Nan Madol, with its megalithic walls, showcases the coordination and planning abilities of cultures long and unjustly dismissed as simple or primitive. 19. Kaimanawa Wall, New Zealand. Also known as the Kaimanawa Wall by enthusiasts, this supposed wall is located on New Zealand's North Island, near the Kaimanawa Forest. It is a rock formation with rectangular blocks that some believe were sculpted by human hands in a remote era, perhaps pre-Maori. The Tuho tribe and others maintain oral traditions about ancient peoples who might have left such traces behind. However, most geologists and archaeologists in New Zealand assert that it is simply an ignimbrite outcrop, a volcanic rock, with natural fractures that create smooth faces and right angles. A study by the New Zealand Department of Conservation, led by archaeologist Neville Ritchie, concluded that the wall is merely a natural fracture typical of the region, with no solid evidence of intentional shaping. This does not prevent the emergence of hypotheses about little-known Pacific civilizations or immigrants from distant regions who might have lived in New Zealand before the Polynesians. But to this day, there is no unequivocal evidence of human occupation predating the Maori, who arrived around the 13th century AD. Thus, the Kaimanawa Wall remains another curious example of how nature can create megalithic illusions that challenge our perception. 20. Vinapu Wall, Easter Island. When thinking of Easter Island, Rapa Nui, many immediately recall the moai, those colossal statues carved from volcanic tuff. But there is also a site called Vinapu, where a wall of stones was built with astonishing precision, some weighing between 10 and 20 tons. The masonry style is remarkably similar to that of the Incas in Peru, which has given rise to theories of possible trans-Pacific contact between Polynesians and South Americans. However, genetic and linguistic research tends to indicate that the Rapa Nui came from eastern Polynesia, with little evidence of genetic mixing with Andean peoples in pre-colonial times. The architectural similarities may be the result of coincidental construction techniques developed independently. The Vinapu Wall, built without mortar, protected a ceremonial platform where, centuries ago, moai were placed to watch over the surroundings. The history of Easter Island is that of an isolated society in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, which experienced a population collapse before the arrival of Europeans in the 18th century. Vinapu, with its polygonal wall, continues to fascinate those investigating possible trans-Pacific contacts. But until irrefutable evidence emerges, most archaeologists attribute the structure to local Rapa Nui methods, which in themselves already demonstrate remarkable construction skill. 21. Grand Menhir Brisé in Locmariaca, France. Back in French Brittany, we find the Grand Menhir Brisé in Locmariaca. Today, it lies broken in 4 pieces, but when it stood upright, It is estimated to have reached nearly 20 meters in height and weighed around 330 tons, making it one of the largest stone blocks erected in Neolithic Europe, around 4500 to 4000 BC. It is still uncertain whether the menhir fell due to earthquakes, deliberate human actions, or some other phenomenon. In any case, the fracture appears to have occurred in prehistoric times, as there is evidence of ancient interventions on the fragments. As was customary in various regions of the Atlantic and the Mediterranean, these enormous menhirs may have marked sacred territories, served as rudimentary astronomical observatories, or been the setting for shamanic rituals. The complexity of erecting a 330-ton block without metal tools or wheels, or only rudimentary ones, is staggering. Experimental models show that with human traction, rollers, sleds, and earth ramps, such feats can be accomplished over weeks or months. However, this would require organized leadership and strong collective motivation, possibly religious or social in nature, for people to exert such effort. The Grand Menhir Brisé stands as a silent witness to a society that left few records beyond these monumental stones. 22. Obelisk of Hatshepsut, Egypt. Pharaoh Hatshepsut, 15th century BC, was one of the most powerful women in the history of Egypt, renowned for her prosperous reign and grand architectural projects. In Karnak stands an obelisk dedicated to her, approximately 30 meters tall and weighing around 320 tons, carved from a single massive block of granite from Aswan. Although major female achievements were relatively rare in antiquity, Hatshepsut spared no effort to consolidate her divine image. She commissioned the construction of various temples, including the Temple of Deir el-Bahari, and decorated the great sanctuaries of Thebes. The obelisk in question bears hieroglyphs that exalt her accomplishments and legitimize her as the daughter of Amun-Ra. For transportation, the Egyptians likely used barges along the Nile, taking advantage of seasonal floods, and then dragged the monolith on sleds over prepared paths. Its final erection probably involved ramps and counterweights. Every architectural detail symbolizes the union between royal power and divine strength. In contemplating this obelisk, we see not only the genius of Egyptian engineering, but also the drive of a woman who, defying boundaries, claimed the title of pharaoh and ruled successfully. 23. The Thunderstone, St. Petersburg, Russia. In the time of Imperial Russia, Empress Catherine the Great commissioned sculptor Etienne Maurice Falconet to create an equestrian statue of Peter the Great, which would become known as the Bronze Horseman. For its pedestal, it was decided to use a massive granite boulder found in Lahti, about 6 kilometers from the Gulf of Finland. Named the Thunderstone due to a local legend claiming it had been split by lightning, the monolith was estimated to weigh between 1,200 and 1,500 tons. Some early accounts even mention up to 2,000 tons. The transport feat took place between the years 1768 and 1770, mobilizing approximately 400 men. They waited for the harsh winter so that the frozen ground would ease the movement, installed rollers and specially designed metal devices, and dragged the rock to the coast. Then, they placed it on barges to carry it to St. Petersburg. There, the stone was carved into the desired pedestal shape, losing several hundred tons in the process. This episode is considered one of the greatest achievements in the transport of megaliths in recent historical times, accomplished without steam engines or animal traction. It illustrates how political will and the use of relatively simple, yet expertly executed techniques can move mountains, quite literally. Today, the Thunderstone attracts millions of tourists who admire the monument dedicated to Peter the Great, a symbol of Russia's modernization in the 18th century. 24. Trilithon Stones of Baalbek, Lebanon. We return to the site of Baalbek. this time to highlight the three colossal stones known as the trilithon, which form part of the base of the Temple of Jupiter. Each block measures approximately 19 meters in length, 4 meters and 20 centimeters in height, and 3 meters and 60 centimeters in width, with an estimated weight ranging from 750 to 800 tons. They stand out even among other massive blocks weighing about 300 to 400 tons in the lower layer. The big question is, who raised these monumental stones? Most archaeologists attribute the Temple of Jupiter to the Romans of the 1st century BCE and the 1st century CE, a time when Baalbek was known as Heliopolis. However, there are theories suggesting the megalithic foundation may be older, possibly Phoenician or even pre-Phoenician, and that the Romans merely built on an already existing base. Regardless, lifting 800-ton blocks requires hoisting and transport technology that continues to astonish. Even the Romans, with all their expertise in pulleys, wooden cranes, block and tackle systems, and the use of human or animal force, would have faced a tremendous challenge. Numerous theories have emerged, from the supposed help of biblical giants to the possible use of hydraulic levers. The most plausible explanation is that ancient engineers had extensive practical knowledge of rollers, traction, and how to leverage the slope of the terrain. Still, Baalbek remains one of the favorite enigmas for those studying megalithic construction. 25. Yangshan Quarry and the Unfinished Stele, China. We conclude the list with a true colossus at the Yangshan Quarry near Nanjing, China. There lies the largest worked stone ever recorded, known as the Unfinished Stele of Emperor Yongle, from the 15th century CE during the Ming dynasty. The original plan was to erect a grand monument at the Ming Shaoling Mausoleum, tomb of Emperor Hongwu, founder of the dynasty. But when the stonemasons began extracting the rock, they realized that transportation and assembly would be unfeasible. Had it been completed, the stele would have measured 30 meters and 35 centimeters in length, 13 meters in width, and 16 meters in height, with an estimated weight of 16,250 tons. Yes, you read that correctly, over 16,000 tons. Although the Ming Dynasty Chinese were master builders of walls, bridges, canals, and ships, this project proved to be beyond any practical capacity. As a result, the stele was abandoned in the quarry, but its cuts and tool marks remain, bearing witness to the extraction process. When looking at all these feats, one unavoidable question arises. Why did so many distant cultures, without contact with one another, turn to megaliths? Is there a universal symbolic reason for using colossal stones? Or were all these civilizations somehow connected, directly or indirectly, by a cultural or spiritual link still not understood? The Yangshan Quarry itself suggests that large amounts of rock were extracted over the centuries for other constructions, indicating a considerable mastery of cutting, levering, and transport techniques. However, the unfinished stele remains a reminder of the physical limits faced by medieval Chinese engineers. Even if they had attempted it, moving a piece of that size would likely have resulted in fractures or serious accidents. Up to this point, we've seen structures that defy all known logic, but perhaps the most disturbing fact is that many of these sites present something even more unsettling. There are no written records explaining how they were built. Why? What were they trying to hide or protect? How did ancient civilizations transport these blocks? After reviewing these 25 remarkable examples, a central question arises. How, after all, did ancient civilizations transport and raise such heavy blocks? There is no single, definitive answer, but we can list some frequently mentioned methods and hypotheses: wooden rollers and sledges. Possibly the most widely used method, this involved placing the stone blocks on sturdy sledges and sliding them over wooden rails or cylindrical logs, thereby reducing friction with the ground. A large number of people or animals was required to pull the ropes, and lubrication using water, oil or grease was often necessary to ease the movement. Earthen or brick ramps. Many archaeologists attribute the construction of pyramids and large platforms to the use of ramps, which could be long and gradual to reduce the slope. In some cases, the hypothesis of internal ramps within Egyptian pyramids has been proposed. This technique would have required an enormous volume of rubble and careful logistical planning. Use of pulleys, winches, and primitive counterweights. Although it is known that pulleys were used in antiquity, there is no evidence of compound pulleys at some of the older sites. However, in cultures such as the Roman, the use of wooden cranes and simple gear systems was already notable, allowing the lifting of stones weighing several dozens of tons. Transport on barges or boats. In regions crossed by major rivers, such as Egypt, Mesopotamia, and China, or in coastal zones like Polynesia and the Mediterranean, water transport could drastically reduce the physical effort required. Still, once the stones reached the shore or riverbank, the challenging task of dragging them overland remained. Social organization. Regardless of the technique used, the common denominator in all these constructions is that they required complex societies, capable of mobilizing large numbers of workers, providing food, coordinating tasks, and relying on leadership or sacred motivations to justify such enormous effort. Alternative or fringe theories. Some hypotheses refer to sound vibrations, anti-gravity, the influence of extraterrestrial beings, or lost technologies capable of dissolving rock. Although these ideas are popular in pop culture, they lack scientific backing. Still, we cannot ignore the fascination they provoke. The very fact that so many people around the world feel that something is missing from the official narrative may indicate that while exaggerated, these theories point to real gaps. What exactly have we lost over the centuries? How many manuscripts, tools, or records have perished in fires, wars, and disasters? Ultimately, each archaeological site has its own technological, environmental, and cultural context, meaning the solutions employed may have varied significantly. It's possible that some civilizations mastered techniques that are now unknown due to the absence of records. But generally speaking, methods involving rollers, ramps, sledges, and human or animal traction, combined with centuries of experimentation, seem to explain most cases. The prehistoric stone blocks that still lack a definitive explanation fascinate us not because they are literally inexplicable, but because they remind us how far human ingenuity can go, overcoming the technological limits of its time. Whether in Egypt, Peru, Polynesia, Asia, Europe, or the Americas, ancient civilizations achieved monumental feats, driven by religion, politics, cultural pride, defensive needs, or a mix of these motivations. These colossal constructions invite us to rethink our own notion of progress. If people without steel, steam engines, or the internet could raise structures that still stand today, what more could we accomplish with a bit of ingenuity, determination, and teamwork? And how many other mysteries remain to be uncovered, hidden by time, or buried in remote landscapes? Which of these 25 examples surprised you the most? And what if I told you that many engineers and scholars agree that example number 22, the obelisk of Hatshepsut, is one of the most underrated of all? Do you have your own theory about how these colossal stones were lifted? Do you believe there were lost civilizations with advanced knowledge? Leave your comment below, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and give us a like to support our work. If you'd like to explore more of history's mysteries, check out our other videos or click on one of the suggestions on the screen. Thanks so much for watching, and see you next time, when we'll bring you more curiosities, theories, and discoveries about humanity's greatest achievements throughout history.